Looking on page 12. Turning that page over and look on the other side. Converting between degrees and radians. Angles can be measured in degrees and radians, which are units based on arc length. 1 radian is the measure of an angle theta in standard position with the terminal side that intercepts an arc with the same length as the radius of the circle. Degree measure and radian measure are related by the equations 2 pi radians equals 360 degrees and pi radians equals 180 degrees. And then they give you the box that shows you what to multiply by to change radians to angles and what to multiply by to change angle degrees or degree measure to radian measure. Okay, so we're going to be converting using those units, and then how to find arc length whenever you're drawing that angle on your paper. For a circle with radius r and central angle theta in radians, the arc length s equals the product of r, and which is the radius, and the angle. And so you have to make sure that the angle is measured in radians whenever you do the arc length for it to work. Okay, so at the middle of your paper where it says rewrite each degree measure in radians and each radian measure in degrees, starting with the first one, number 1 is 140 degrees. So to change that to radians, I'm going to multiply by pi radians over 180. And I went ahead and put the degree measure over 1 because it is a whole number, and I can reduce both of those by 20. So this 140 divided by 20 is going to be 7, and the 180 divided by 20 is going to be 9. And then you can multiply straight across. So you'll have 7 pi over 9 radians. Okay, so then on number 3, we have negative 3 pi over 5, and they want us to change that to a degree measure. So to do that, I'm going to multiply by 180 over pi. So it's just the opposite, the inverse. Okay, so my pi's are going to reduce out. 5 and 180 are going to reduce. So I'll have 1 in the denominator and 36 in the numerator. And when I multiply those together, multiply straight across, I'm going to have negative 108 degrees. Any questions? All right, so on the next part, it says find the length of each arc, round to the nearest tenth. So on number 7, they give you the radius is 4 and the angle is 2 pi over 3. So to get my arc length, S, I'm just going to multiply the radius times the angle. And it does need to be in radians. In your homework it is going to be in radians. You don't have to convert anything, so that's a good thing. And you multiply straight across. That 4 is over 1 because it's a whole number, so you're going to have 8 pi over 3. And they do want this in a decimal because it's telling you to round to the nearest tenth. So on your calculator, there's a key for pi, which is the second function of your caret. So I'm going to type in 8 second caret, get that value, that's a decimal, and then divide that by 3. And that's going to be about 8.4. You don't need to worry about writing units because they don't give you a unit. So, any questions on that one? Okay, so I want to add one more thing to page 11 at the bottom, if you want to flip back over real quick. When it says to find an angle with a positive measure and an angle with a negative measure that are coterminal with each angle, on your assignment, they're going to give you some angles measured in radians. So let's do one that's measured in radians, like pi over 6. Now remember, they said on the other side that one rotation, 360 degrees, is 2 pi. So instead of adding 360 degrees, since it's in radians, I'm going to add 2 pi, which is really the same thing. It's just in a different measurement. Okay, so that's going to give me another positive angle, and then pi over 6 minus 2 pi is going to give me a negative angle measure. So I need to put those both over 1 because now I'm going to be combining fractions together, and I need to get a common denominator, which is going to be 6. So I would need to multiply top and bottom, 2 pi over 1 times 6. So I have pi over 6 plus 12 pi over 6. Okay, and when you're adding pi's together, it's kind of like adding variables together. You're just counting how many you have. So if I have 1 pi plus 12 pi, I'll have 13 pi over 6. So that's a positive angle that has the same terminal side. And I need to do the same thing here. I'm going to have to subtract 12 pi over 6 after I get the same denominator. So I'm just going to change that to 12 pi over 6. And pi minus 12 pi is going to be negative 11 pi. It's all over 6. And there's your negative angle measure.